Dreamline Ninja was a full-length instructional kayak video funded by $83,079 on Kickstarter. Steve Fisher, the creator of Dreamline, said it was supposed to be the best instructional kayak movie ever made. Except there was one problem. It was never made. As the internet comment sections, who are literally never wrong about anything ever, speculate, Steve just stole the money to get a free Zambezi trip with his friends. I can 100% confirm this isn't true. Steve didn't steal your Kickstarter money, this whole thing wasn't intended to be a scam, was not a scam, and Steve actually lost money because of Dreamline Ninja. I did speak to some inside sources about Dreamline.
It's sitting on a hard drive. I wish it was sitting on one of my hard drives.
But to truly understand what they have to say, we have to start from the beginning and review the history of the Dreamline Ninja. Due to the success of Steve's instructional column with Kayak Session magazine, in 2015, Steve and Kayak Session partnered up to offer a full-length instructional kayak movie and special edition magazine containing the best kayak instruction to date. Because the typical big-name sponsors don't bite for a project that would have no appeal beyond the core whitewater community, Steve turned to a Kickstarter campaign which launched November 2, 2015 to finance the movie. The campaign was asking for $55,000 for travel, quality film production, and team wages. Steve said, "Paddlers deserve to be paid. Ask Pat Keller. Only other filmmaker who operates that way is Scott Lindgren. Learned it from him." How fairly is fair? Steve said, "We paid all expenses for the Zambezi trip of all camera and instructor crew, plus $500 a day for camera operators and $400 a day for all paddler and instructors except me. To incentivize people to donate to the Kickstarter, there were various rewards tiers, ranging from getting a copy of the movie, to getting a custom dry bag, to spending a week kayaking the Zambezi with the instructors. The rewards tiers worked, and in the first week they got $34,000. By the end of the Kickstarter campaign on November 30th, 2015, Steve had exceeded his goal, raising $83,079. He said he would make each and every cent go towards production, he wouldn't pay himself, and he would only make money through DVD sales afterwards. Just a few days after the Kickstarter was over, on December 5th, the whole team had made it to the Zambezi. Steve Fisher was the project lead, EJ was the head instructor, Benny, Dane, and Pat were co-instructors, and Alexa Hinson managed project logistics. This was an all-star crew who was very capable of delivering the best kayak instruction and kayaking in the world. Steve was going to use state-of-the-art production equipment to capture techniques such as basic strokes, scouting, boat control during freefall, safety, multi-days, and some of the latest advanced trickery. And indeed he did. Plenty of footage was released in teasers from this month-long instructional trip to the Zambezi. The first Zambezi trip wasn't all for filming the movie, though. Steve had Dane and EJ lead a blind man, Lonnie Bedwell, down the Zambezi. Lonnie was skiing in Colorado and got a call from Steve with Outside TV looking to do a story about Lonnie on the Zambezi. They only gave him 12 days notice, so he didn't get a chance to train at all. Luckily, he's a solid paddler who has done the Grand Canyon 2 times already, so his Zambezi trip went fairly smooth. He did the whole river, no swims. Steve Fisher put the video up on his Vimeo account, Flow State Cinema, on April 4th, 2016. Give it a watch, it's free. A lot of the info about this project I got straight from Lonnie. He told me many other incredible stories about his Zambezi trip, but they're so incredible and he's such a better storyteller than me that you should really hear it straight from him. He was super friendly with my interview request, so maybe one of you guys that runs a podcast or something can get him on. But relevant to the instructional movie Dreamline, Lonnie described EJ and Dane working very effectively as instructors, and Steve and EJ being professionals with the filming and everything going smooth in that respect. Clearly Steve isn't some doofus, he's a true professional filmmaker, and indeed he's finished several other large feature-length kayak film projects before. After the filming was done for this project, the backers that pledged $2,500 got their guided trip down the Zambezi, and many of them posted videos of it on YouTube and Instagram. Due to a slight typo, this guided trip was offered again in 2016, so I'm not sure which footage comes from which year, but everyone that paid got their trip to the Zambezi, and apparently loved it. By January 6th, the entire crew was back for the Zambezi, and Steve Fisher focused on getting some extra footage, creaking technique, and female instruction. Steve's wife rightfully pointed out that there were no female instructors in the movie, so Steve recruited Noria Newman, Adrienne Levconnect, I'm sorry, I have no idea how to say her name properly, and Nicole Mansfield. They filmed some shots in the Pacific Northwest over the summer of 2016. They taught on the little white and the white salmon, and Steve paid them the same as the male instructors were paid on the Zambezi, $400 a day. Steve also said he planned to go to France to film a slalom segment with Noria, but I couldn't figure out if that ever happened. Some other creaking technique was filmed in the southeast of 2016. On March 15, 2016, Steve posted an update to the Kickstarter where he stated he was beginning to start fulfilling rewards for all 844 Kickstarter backers. As far as I can tell, everybody got their rewards except for the movie itself, obviously. However, this one guy on Instagram claims he pledged 48 for the Congo pack and never received his dry bag. The rewards fulfillment is also where all the money went. In an interview published November 21st, 2016, Steve details the money situation. $25,000 for rewards fulfillment, $30,000 for wages, $20,000 for flights and food, and $7,500 for Kickstarter fees. Let's compare the actual spending numbers to Steve's projected spending. We'll take the percentages outlined on the Kickstarter and use the $83,000 total. I assume Steve's numbers are rounded, so I'll similarly round my projected figures. Wages, projected $30,000, actual $30,000. Note, again, Steve never paid himself. To the best of my knowledge, he is still, in 2021, in debt from Dreamline. Kickstarter fees, projected $6,500, actual $7,500. Flights and food, projected $19,000, actual $20,000. Rewards fulfillment, projected $6,000, actual $25,000. So we can see that except for rewards fulfillment, Steve's target was actually pretty good. Now, Steve had also raised $10,000 through sponsors outside of the Kickstarter and put $20,000 of his own money in. I'll say that again. Steve Fisher is $20,000 in the hole with his own money. Clearly this wasn't a scam, otherwise he wouldn't have ponied up that much of his own cash. He had motivation to finish the Dreamline. Now, by this point, the project was about 6 months past the original promised date. Not actually very late in the grand scheme of things. In a kayak session interview, Steve acknowledges the aggressive schedule and the tardiness of the production. He blames most of the lateness on Dreamline just being a bigger project than he expected. He had to keep money flowing through his business with other projects that took his time away from Dreamline. In the interview, Steve promised that after the 2016 Zambezi trip with Benny, to fulfill the remaining rewards backers' promise, he would get back on the editing grind and finish the movie. Just before this interview, on November 16th to be exact, Steve published the Dreamline website, which no longer exists. I grabbed these screenshots from the Internet Archive. He said after all the filming was done, he was $1,800 in the red. After all the paddle with the pro days, which was another rewards fulfillment you could get, you pledge a certain amount of money and Steve or Benny or Dane or one of those guys would paddle with you for a day. After all those days, Steve was $20,000 in the red. That's the $20,000 bill he paid for himself personally. At the moment of writing the post on the website, Steve was at EJ's place in Tennessee working on some extra filming and the script for the movie before the 2016 Zambezi trip. The 2016 Zambezi trip would have Steve, Benny, and be filmed by Dan Campbell-Lloyd, and it went off without a hitch. After that trip, on March 10th, 2017, about a year and a half after the initial Kickstarter campaign, Steve posted the last official Kickstarter update. Steve said he had a complete roadmap to finishing the movie, and that it will be the best instructional kayak movie ever made. He had a clear path to finishing the project. He also mentioned one last detail. Mike McKay, a filmmaker. Steve said Mike was helping him turn a rat's nest into a masterpiece. At an Instagram post on March 21st, 2017, Mike noted how they went up to Great Falls of the Potomac to meet with Jason Beeks of Active Nature to get the final shots they needed for the movie. On April 12th, Mike posted on Instagram saying that he spent 2 weeks working on Dreamline with Steve, and later you can see Mike posting on Instagram about the Zambezi trip with Steve. The last update we got from Steve in any capacity is a post from the now removed Dreamline Ninja Facebook page, reposted to the Kickstarter comments by Barry Welling, a super backer. This was posted about 4 years ago from the release of this very video. This was posted on November 3rd, 2017. Steve says he was driving from Asheville to DC to fulfill the last 2 of the 75 Paddle with the Pro days. Steve acknowledged that it had been 2 years, and that was too long. Steve said Dreamline has become his side project due to a dwindling paddling career and needs to keep his main focus on making money. He says he only paddles for Dreamline clinics and takes only the minimum of side projects besides Dreamline to keep the money flowing in so he can live. He said he was going to try to get the film out as early as possible. By August 22nd, 2019, all Dreamline websites were offline. We have not heard from Steve. So, where does that leave us? Well, here's a summary of all the important publicly available information on Dreamline. Steve raised $83,000 on Kickstarter. His spending estimates were remarkably accurate except for rewards fulfillment. Nearly everyone had their actual reward fulfilled except for the actual movie. They filmed great footage on the Zambezi, took a blind guy down the Zambezi and made a video about it. Steve did extra filming in the Southeast and with the ladies in the Pacific Northwest after he got back from his first Zambezi trip. A second Zambezi trip for extra backers happened the following year in 2016. Mike McKay helped Steve for 2 weeks on Dreamline. They did some extra filming on Great Falls, and up to November 2017, Steve was still posting updates on the project. But that's the last we've heard of him, despite him saying he had a complete roadmap to finishing Dreamline. Well, I actually have heard from Steve Fisher. Steve Fisher himself heard I was making this video, and he reached out to me asking to be involved. That's right, I didn't have to contact Steve. He got to me first. He wanted to make sure my project was complete, accurate, and factual. And you really have to commend Steve on this. He knows about all the Dreamline hate, so reaching out to me to be available for an interview when people really hate him for this, honestly, is remarkable. At least, it would be remarkable if not for one thing. Steve never responded to any follow-up emails I sent. When he originally contacted me, he said I'd have to wait to August to talk to him because of a trip with his wife and kids. No problem. I responded July 18th, followed up August 9th, and September 2nd, and Steve still hasn't responded to me. So, even though he reached out to me, I guess we can't learn what happened directly from Steve. So perhaps Dan Campbell-Lloyd, the cameraman for the second Dreamline trip in 2016, can help us out.
Dan speaking.
And if it sounds like I have cut together a bunch of sound bites, that's because I have. I'm apparently not great at interviewing people, so I've cut mine and Dan's conversation together to stay a little more on topic, a little more than my minuscule interview skills allowed in real time. But back to the story. Dan was not only the cameraman, but also Steve's best friend.
Steve Fisher's was my best mate of about, 25 years. And he's actually working for me. And we I guess, recently fell through about 2 years ago, probably right around when this happened. And short story long, Steve and I both moved to the Zambezi at the same time. Must have been 1999, 2000 maybe. I don't even know anymore. And both were video kayakers on the Zambezi and raft guys. So safety kayaking, rafting, but mostly video boaters. I was there for about 6 years. I think he was there about the same, and from there we actually started competing in the US. So him and I both travelled to the US the first year with Brad Lutton, Nico Casey, and Kyron Addison. We were sponsored. Kyron had asked us to come over actually, and so we did it. We did the tour for quite a few years after that. So when we did go back to do the Dreamline project with Benny and Johnny, I kind of just went because it was a good. I tried to go back because I spent so many years there. Tried to go back and kayak the river and see everybody, and that was a good excuse for me to go back. And I film. I do production for a living. So Steve covered all my costs and food, flights, and all the things, and I just went along and filmed it and hung out. A lot of things changed. I think he was under a huge amount of stress. He was working for me, doing off-road racing, and trying to start a production company, and at the same time got married very quickly and had 2 kids really, really quickly. And just kind of put himself in too much in over his head in every aspect of his life, and couldn't handle it, and pretty much just self-destructed to the point where we don't talk anymore. It's pretty sad. I don't know why he doesn't want to be mate, I eventually just had to be like, I've got to look out for myself. I was tired of excuses, and so I just said, hey, if you want to be my mate, then this is how you can be my mate. And if you can't do that, then I'm out. Because he was going to fuck me on these TV shows, and I wasn't willing to put my career or my name on the line, because I've spent 25 years building my reputation and the companies that I work for and Ultra 4 racing, and I wasn't about to give it away over a friendship. It's kind of like breaking up with a wife or something and getting divorced.
What is Ultra 4? It's an off-road race that has a lot of media content with high production value.
I do like all of the off-road racing across America. And sometimes I have a team of like 55 people. Smaller races, like 5, 6, 7 people. So a lot of them all have backgrounds and come from kayaking. Just, friends. Rush, Scott Lingren, you name it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I guess speaking of the off-road racing, I had mentioned that Steve was going to do some big production for them that also fell through, but when I emailed them, they said it went just fine. I don't know if you know anything about that or want to talk about it.
Well, yeah, I don't know who you're emailing there. If you were emailing anyone about that production, you should be emailing me, since I'm the boss. I basically handed over, I have another company, I handed over production to Steve, and I'm the boss of production, and Dave Cole is the owner of Ultra 4, and Steve was meant to be producing the TV shows for ABC or NBC, whoever it was at the time, and they couldn't hit their deadline. So things kind of went a little bit pear-shaped, and contracts were going to get broken, and a lot of things had to happen very quickly to get those shows into ABC. Otherwise, there was going to be a huge amount of penalties and fines and contracts broken. So a few things happened, and we did what we had to do, and Steve was no longer involved in that, and nor does he ever work for Ultra 4 again.
Okay, well, thank you for clearing that up. Okay, but yeah, as for Dreamline, you just filmed it, and then that's kind of the last that you were involved. Okay, do you remember any of the specific things they were teaching? I've heard from several people that they think that had the Dreamline came out, it would have been incredible, and I'm wondering if anybody remembers what they were actually going to talk about in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like most of the projects already edited and done. I mean, it's sitting on a hard drive. I wish it was sitting on one of my hard drives. Maybe I'll have a look. Nah, he would have taken it. That thing, I'm pretty sure most of it was done, because he had guys that were making the TV show for me were also working on that as well. I mean, I think it was almost to the point where you just hit export and fucking it was done, send it out. I don't know why it didn't get sent out. I think it was just Steve's attitude. He was just like, fuck life, and decided he wasn't going to do it. But a lot of the lessons, paddle strokes, lots of like kayak control and paddle strokes, and Benny Ma would be able to explain it a lot better. He did a lot of them.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
But focused a lot on the specifics of boat control.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to watch any of EJ's instructional videos or stuff like that, you'd be right on. It would be very similar, right on point, almost identical to both EJ and Steve had very similar ways of paddling and ideas of how to teach people, and taught the same way.
Okay, yeah, because EJ was also, he was on one of the Zambezi trips, I know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the one that you were on or not.
No, I think it was the one before, maybe. With the blind guy, maybe.
Okay, with Lonnie, yeah. Yeah, I talked to Lonnie about that. Okay, so you were on the trip that had a bunch of like
Paid clients.
paid clients, yeah, and that all went smooth. People loved their trip and everything.
Oh yeah, I mean every single person on there was extremely stoked with it and happy with how much money they spent, how it all went down, and would have come back probably every other trip. In fact, I stayed friends with almost every single person on that trip.
Okay, so I need to go to the Zambezi. That's what I'm hearing.
Steve covered all my costs and food, flights, and all the things, and I just went along and filmed it and hung out.
Okay, and all the filming went like very smoothly. There were no issues.
Yeah, I don't even know what we were using. I think probably shooting it all on GoPros and 5Ds. Pretty smoothly, you know. A lot of the filming I would do, so I'd like run the rapids first, dry bag, camera, tripod, and really just following those guys around. Definitely running GoPros all the time because a lot of the POV stuff, or a lot of the onboard filming just needed to be GoPros.
Okay, but all the filming and everything that went super smooth, no problems there at all.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, we got way more content than you could ever use.
Okay, and
we would stop and like do full instructional videos, like a couple of times a day, where it would sit and explain, go through and explain certain things, certain moves, how to do certain paddle strokes. I mean, that was all documented really well. Both Steve and Benny both, spent hours teaching. In fact, I even learned a few things.
And then that was pretty much it for your involvement. You just filmed on this one trip, and that was about it.
Yeah, exactly. No, so what are you going to do? You're doing a little documentary of why it wasn't made?
Yeah, a documentary's maybe a strong word, like just a little like YouTube video kind of thing, this is just me, me on my computer at home. But yeah, I just put a little video together about kind of trying to figure out what happened,
Right. What have you figured out?
Yeah, basically figured out what you said, that Steve had like a master document plan, that like detailed, almost shot for shot what was going to go in the movie. He had all the footage. It was supposed to be like really great, and then he just never finished. But that like basically everything else about the project got done. All the filming got done. All the rewards aside from the movie itself got sent out, and that just for whatever reason he despite having this plan and everything just couldn't finish the movie, and that he probably just. I know at some point, at least somebody claims that he had someone volunteer to edit the movie for him, and he basically said, no, do it myself. Okay, but he definitely had someone volunteer to edit this movie, and he didn't want them to.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'd heard rumors of that. I didn't know if that was true or not. But yeah, that's basically what I figured out. I figured out that like taking everybody to the Zambezi was quite expensive, and that Kickstarter takes a decent amount of your money, and he just got back from the Zambezi trips and just didn't have much left over for like production and stuff like that.
No, actually, to be fair, I think I'm pretty sure all of the money from Kickstarter got spent on those trips and making the video. There was no, and that's fair to him. There was no pocketing of the money, and that's very much in his nature, and why he doesn't work for me anymore, because he tries to overdo everything in the best way possible. It has to be his way and done properly, and he'll fucking spend money to make it even better. And so he did run out of money. I know he did, and that's probably that's one reason why it didn't get finished. And then because it ran out of money, and it wasn't going to be perfect like he wanted it to be perfect, he just fucking stopped doing it.
Okay. Yeah, I heard he even spent like about 20 grand of his own money.
Oh, for sure. Guaranteed. I know he did. I mean, he was my best friend. We talked. I mean, talked. And he was working for me. I probably talked to him every other day about this stuff.
Wow. Yeah, so he was very committed, it sounds like. I mean, you wouldn't be if you didn't spend 20 grand of your own money.
Yeah, you know. And so what, Steve, you only emailed with him?
Yeah, so he actually emailed me. He reached out to me, and he's like, I've heard you're making this project, I just want to make sure that I'm involved so I can help, get all the facts right. And I was like, that's awesome, Steve. I would love to, have you, make sure I don't say anything that's incorrect. And then he just never got back to me.
Huh. I mean, yeah, he's probably trying to cover his ass. I don't even know what he does anymore. He blocked my phone and my email. Well, I don't know. He said he did. I've never even tried. I basically was like, he owes me an apology, and if he's not willing to apologise, then I'm not going to pick up the phone for the guy. Because I was going to get fucked pretty badly on the NBC TV show. In fact, there would be me that would get caught over it. I wasn't willing to do that. Yeah. If I saw him right now, I'd punch him. Then ask him to apologise. But time heals everything, and he was my best mate for 25 years, and he comes back to me and goes, fuck bro, I said, I fucked up, and I'm sorry. Then everything under the bridge. No problems. Maybe one day that'll happen.
So I want to thank Dan for being upfront with us about all this information. I also want to say that while I have no reason to suspect that Dan was lying about any of this stuff, I really can't confirm any of it's true. I mean, there's no publicly available information that you can find, and Dan's views don't necessarily reflect my own. Thanks for watching.